Back at Texas Card House here in Dallas, one of my favorite poker rooms in the country. Today's video is going to be a recap from 2 days that I played there last week. They have a match the stack rule at their 2-5 games. The biggest stack of the table is $3,000, so I get to match that stack and buy in for $3,000 myself. One of my favorite things about playing Texas poker. First hand we get into here, there's an under the gun raise to 25. I 3-bet King 10 of clubs to 60 and he makes a call. Heads up to Jack 10, 5, 2 diamonds. With second pair, when he checks, I c-bet small, $40, and he calls. Turn card 9 of hearts, he checks, I check this one back. River card Queen of clubs, now giving me the second nut straight, only losing to Ace King now. Because my opponent didn't 4-bet preflop, I highly doubt he's going to have that hand. However, he leads into me for a $275 bet. So we river a straight on a one-liner board, and my opponent bets over the size of the pot. I don't think this is ever a bluff. I don't think he's ever doing this with anything but a straight. However, he could have ace-king, like I said before. I think a raise by us would just be an overplay. We're probably chopping a lot of the time. Sometimes we're probably beat, and then a very small fraction of the time he's turning his hand into a bluff. So I decide to call, and we get shown ace-king for a straight to the ace, and our straight to the king is no good. Right off the bat, we get slightly coolered here, losing around $400. Texas poker is unlike anywhere else in the country. People love to see flops, so I tend on raising bigger pre-flop just to get value out of my strong hands because people like to call so often. In this hand, I have Queen Jack of diamonds. There's 3 calls for $10, and I raise it way up to $115. Only the small blind makes the call, so we get exactly what we want. Heads up, in position with a great hand. The flop is even better for us when it comes out Jack, Jack 4, 2 clubs. We flop trips with a queen kicker, most likely the best hand here. When he checks, I bet $75 and he makes the call. Turn 10 of diamonds only changes things if he possibly has pocket 10s or Jack 10. However, I think it's a pretty great card to continue to bet and to bet fairly big. I can get called by all pocket pairs that might think that I still have ace-king. He can also have some flush draws as well, so I throw out $200 this time. And without thinking for too long, the small blind matches my bet. A fairly large pot brewing here, going to the river, which is the 4th jack. We are making quads here, our second hand at Texas Card House in Dallas. My opponent checks, and I think a lot of the time he's going to have a missed flush draw, but let's just bet and hope that he calls. I throw out $325. The small blind thinks for roughly 15 seconds and decides his hand is too good to fold, so he puts in the call. Quad jacks are going to take this one down. I then look up at the high hand bonus, which is every 30 minutes, and it's quad jacks with a 9 kicker, which means we are up on the board now with just a couple minutes remaining. If our hand holds, we'll make an extra $250 from the house. The dealer in this hand is named Austin. He tells me he enjoys watching my poker vlogs. I've known him for a couple months now, and in order to give him a little extra sweat, I tell him if I win the high hand bonus of $250 that I'll throw him $50 as an extra tip. So a little bit of a sweat for both of us. We got to ride it out for the next 3 minutes to hold. It's Austin and I's lucky day. $250 high hand bonus is coming our way, and as promised, $50 going to the dealer, and I put the extra $200 in my stack, and after that hand, I'm now up around $600 on the session. Those are the only 2 significant hands I played on this Thursday night session, profiting around $500. I then come back the next day, Friday, around 1 p.m. It's the last day I'm here in Dallas. I fly back to Florida in about 5 hours, so we have a little bit of time to get some cards in the air, make some hands, and hopefully make some money. I'm extremely card dead on this session so far. I really haven't picked up any playable hands, and I'm worried that I may not even get enough footage to make a vlog until we get 9 of diamonds, 9 of hearts in early position. I raised to $30 over a straddle, and only the big blind makes the call, so we're heads up in position with pocket 9s, and the flop comes out with a 9 in it, so we flop a set, middle set here on a queen high board. He checks, I bet $40, and he calls. Turn card 4 of hearts. When he checks again, I size up to $135, but no more value for us. This time he folds. I'm really not too big of a fan of playing poker during the day. I just feel like the action is way better in the late hours in the evening. The stacks are usually bigger and people are definitely willing to gamble a little bit more. This table is playing pretty tight. A lot of fun players, but really not much action. Nobody really punting off their stack either, but I'm forced to play these hours because I'm leaving on my flight. In around 3 hours now, we're going to try to make it happen here, try to make some big pots, and hopefully we can run good and maybe win a big one. There's definitely a tough balance between trying to make fun, exciting content for the poker vlog and then also trying to play solid poker as well. You have no control over the hands that you're getting dealt in. Sometimes you're just card dead forever, and I have to fight the urge to get in there with really bad speculative hands just to make exciting content. On this channel, I try to showcase what it's like to play poker for a living, and if poker is your sole source of income, you got to be smart, you have to play discipline, you can't just get crazy out of line for an extra 10,000 views, so I'm going to sit here, try to play patient, disciplined poker, and hopefully things start coming our way. After about 2 hours of really not playing any hands, our patience is paying off here. When we look down at two black kings in the low jack position, I raised to $20, and now the hijack player with around $2,000 in his stack, he hasn't played many hands at all. He 3-bets me to $80. The cutoff calls $80. The button calls $80. And now the action is back over on me. There's really not too much strategy in this one, guys. We have a super strong hand. We get 3-bet with 2 cold calls. A 4-bet is definitely in store. I don't want to make it too big where I scare off hands like pocket 10s, jacks, or ace king, but there is still a lot of dead money in the pot. If I make it a small amount, I don't want to get called 3 ways and go 4 ways out of position. So I settle on a raise of $380. $300 more. I feel like this sizing will allow me to go heads up with the hijack player. Unfortunately, after folding for 2 hours, my image is not very good. They probably put me on a very strong hand, which is rightfully so, and all of my opponents fold, but we take down over $250 without seeing a flop. Last week, I announced that I'd be selling a portion of my $30,000 buy-in for an upcoming live stream game at Hustler Casino in Los Angeles, California. It's going to be a 25, 50, 100 game. I'm going to be risking $30,000 for this game, and I got over 70 emails within the first day of opening this up to the public. I want to thank you guys again. All of you guys who send me emails, thank you for sweating the action and trying to buy a piece of me. I really appreciate it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get back to everyone, but I plan on playing a lot of live streams and hopefully big games in the future, so a lot more opportunities for you guys to buy a piece. If you guys want to watch the game, it's August 31st. It's going to be a big one. Back to the action here at Texas Card House in Dallas. In this hand, you can see there's a $5 red chip on the button, which is actually a tip for the dealer, but only if the button wins the hand. Usually it starts out with someone putting $1 on the button, and then the next player puts another dollar, and the next player puts another dollar, and it sometimes gets up to a large amount. In this hand, there's $5 extra tip for the dealer, but only if I win the hand. It folds to me on the button, and I look down at pocket kings. Well, a pretty good hand here. I raised to $15, and only the big blind makes the call. Heads up to an ace-high board, not my favorite, but I decide to bet, and he folds.
Alright.
Look at that, right? It's not bad.
$1 on that, man.
Oh,
I heard another dollar?
thank you.
Well, so that's all we do, basically. You don't have to, but as it goes on, somebody add on whatever you want to add on, basically. So it could get up to, like, it even got up to $100 before.
Okay, got it.
But
have you guys ever been sitting at the poker table and get dealt in the same exact hand over and over again? It can get pretty annoying unless that hand is pocket kings. For the third time in this orbit, I pick up a premium, this time the red pocket kings. I make it $25. Middle position, button, and small blind call $25. We're 4 ways to an 8 deuce deuce flop. It's honestly a very great board for us, but I like to check out of position for a couple reasons. One is because we're just going to be way ahead on this board, and by checking we can allow our opponents to catch up later on with mediocre hands or potentially bluff and call us down a little bit lighter. Pocket kings really doesn't need much protection on this particular board. Let's say I had pocket 9s or pocket 10s. Those hands definitely need more protection. Really, the only card that we're not looking to see on the turn would be an ace, and there's only 4 of them in the deck, so I decided to check. Middle position player checks, and the button checks behind, so we're still 4 ways to the 4 of hearts on the turn. When the small blind checks for a second time, I elect to put out a bet now of $70. There's now a ton of hands I can get value from. I can get called by straight draws, flush draws, smaller pocket pairs like 5s and 6s and 7s. I can also now get called by a 4 as well. I throw out 70 and the middle position player calls 70 and the button calls as well. Small blind folds and we're 3 ways now to an 8 on the river, double pairing the board. At first glance, this does look like a bad card because now any 8 is now beating us. However, when I check the flop, the middle position player checked and the button player checked behind. I don't expect them to be doing that with the top pair holding. Let's say the button had a hand like King 8 or Ace 8 and the action was checked to him on the flop. I just feel like he's always going to be betting that hand. So I feel pretty good about betting this river card, trying to get called by smaller pocket pairs, maybe a 4 or ace high. I throw out $225 and nobody's got anything at all. They make pretty quick folds and we take another one down. Just cruising along so far in this session, our stack is up over $3,000. We got about 2 hours until we have to leave to Dallas-Fort Worth Airport to catch our flight back here to Florida. There is a $10 straddle on in this hand, and there's 3 limps to me. I have King-Jack offsuit, and I decided to play a little bit of power poker here and raise it up to $110, really just trying to take down this dead money. This hand is good, but it's not that good. This table had been playing very tight, passive, and conservative, so I expect this $110 raise to get through all these mediocre, limping $10 hands. However, the early position player who limped for $10 with $300 in his stack decides to call with only $200 remaining. This particular player had been playing very conservative, very passive pre-flop, so when he limp calls this big of a bet, I automatically put him on a hand like pocket jacks or ace king. So we're looking for some help here, and we get it. The flop is Queen 10-9 Rainbow. We flop the joint, the best hand possible. He's got about $200 left, so I decided to bet small at $65.
65? All in? Call? I have a straight.
Oh, you're good. I need some help then. Nice hand.
After my $65 bet, my opponent jams all in for over $200. We obviously make the snap call, and he shows ace-king for 2 overcards and a gut shot straight draw, and we hold to take down over a $600 pot here. With $5 on the button, we look down at ace-10 offsuit. If we win this hand, the dealer gets an extra $5, so we have a little bit more incentive now to try to win. There's 2 limps to me. I raise it up to $50. The hijack calls 50. Cutoff calls 50, 3 ways to King 9-6. Without any equity on this board, I elect to check this one back. The turn card is the 10 of diamonds, now giving me second pair and the best kicker. There's also 2 diamonds on the board. The hijack player leads out for 50. The cutoff player calls 50. This is kind of a close spot. We're probably beat by one of these players. However, if the hijack had a straight or 2 pair, I think he'd bet a little bit more than 50. And if the cutoff had a straight or 2 pair or a set, I think he'd be raising this $50 bet. So our ace 10 could be good here. We also have the ace of diamonds. So if a diamond comes on the river, we could potentially bluff. The final card's the jack of spades, bringing a one-liner straight to any queen. The hijack player checks. The cutoff player checks, and now the action's back over on me. With a little over $300 in the middle, if we check back this river, we're probably going to lose to a single pair king or a single pair jack a lot of the time. I highly doubt our third pair is going to be good on this particular run out, but we could turn our hand into a bluff. Now, hear me out. Both of my opponents limp called pre-flop, so they really shouldn't have too many strong hands on this board. I doubt they're going to have many 2 pairs. Definitely not going to have many sets, and because they both check the river, I just don't think they ever have a queen X hand here for a straight. However, we can have all the straights. We can have pocket queens. That hand would raise to $50 pre-flop, check back a king high board, and call the turn bet. I could have ace queen for a straight. I could have queen jack, I could have queen 9. With all this being said, I'm going to go for it here. I think I can get my opponents to fold a 1-pair hand or even potentially a 2-pair hand, so I put out a bluff of $225. The hijack player very quickly folds, but the cutoff player goes into the tank. He starts looking over at me. My heart rate starts increasing a little bit here. If we get called, there is no way our 10 is going to be good. Eventually, after about a minute of thinking, the cutoff player shows jack 9 suited for 2-pair and folds. So we get this bluff through, taking this one down. It feels good to get a bluff through, and it feels even better to win the hand because we're on the button, which means that the dealer gets an extra $5 tip because we won the hand. If it wasn't for the dealers, I wouldn't be able to play poker for a living. It's now about an hour and a half until my flight takes off. I end up ordering my Uber, and it says it's 16 minutes away, so I got time for about 1 or 2 more hands. We're playing short-handed now, only 5 players at the table. I'm in the cutoff with king deuce suited. It's at the bottom of my opening range, but I decide to raise it up here. I make it $20. The big blind makes the call. We go heads up to an ace high board. With nothing going on here for me, I decide to check this one back. The turn card's the 8 of spades, now bringing in a flush draw. He leads out for $35, and I decide to float here with king high. Sometimes king high can be good, and also I could potentially bluff on scary river cards. The last card is the 9 of spades, bringing a one-liner straight to any jack or any 6 as well. Also, the backdoor flush gets there, and my opponent checks over to me. Now we have to decide whether we want to check back king high and lose, or if we want to turn our hand into a bluff. And I decide to go with the second option here, putting a lot of pressure on his single pair ace X hands that I think he has. I bluff for $150 here. With king high, if we get called, no way we're going to be good. I think a lot of the time he's going to have an ace, maybe 2-pair, but he should never have a straight and he should never have a flush. The way this hand played out though, I could easily have a jack for a straight, and I can definitely have a backdoor flush as well, so I'm hoping that I will get a fold here. It's actually the same player who called my $325 bet yesterday when I rivered quad jack, so I'm hoping my image will pay off for me this time. Him knowing that the last time he called a big bet on the river, I had quads, so hopefully he'll think I'm not capable of bluffing and he'll fold his hand. However, that doesn't happen. He puts in the call. I tell him I have nothing, and he shows ace 9 for a river 2-pair, and he gets us this time. I do think this king high bluff is somewhat of a punt, but sometimes bluffs work and sometimes they don't. I end up profiting $1,000 on this session, and then I head to the airport to catch my 7 p.m. flight back to Florida. And while I'm waiting for my plane to take off, I get a text from my high school best friend that she's in Florida for a bachelorette party weekend, and she invites me out with her and all of her friends. How could I ever say no to that? So right when my plane lands, I catch an Uber to downtown Fort Lauderdale. I end up partying with them, having some drinks, having some fun, and then end up calling it a night. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, I'll see ya.